Have you ever heard the story of the girl who drowned twice in the same lake, once in 1957 and again in 2004? In the Scottish Highlands, locals whisper about Loch Ard, a place as beautiful as it is cursed. They say if you hear 3 knocks on your boat, whatever you do, don't pull her out. In 2004, a fisherman named Daniel McLeish, 41 years old, lived in the quiet village of Loch Ard, Scotland, population barely 200. He'd been fishing Loch Ard since he was a teenager. The lake was calm, predictable, almost comforting, the kind of place that felt untouched by time. But the locals warned visitors never to stay on the lake after sundown, because at night people claimed to see a girl barefoot, dripping wet, standing at the shoreline, her dress tattered, her hair plastered over her face. And the worst part, she always stared straight at you, even if you were half a mile away. The legend centered around Moira Laird, a 12-year-old girl who drowned in 1957 after a sudden storm flipped her family's fishing boat. Her parents' bodies were recovered. Moira's never was. One detail made her story unforgettable. When the rescue team found her parents, both bodies had deep scratch marks on their ankles, like small hands had clawed for help. Since then, the loch had a rule: never fish alone, never after dark, never if you hear knocking. Daniel wasn't superstitious, but he was practical. He avoided night fishing, not because of ghosts, but because the fog could trap you like cement. But on the night of September 12, 2004, a storm prediction was wrong. The rain came hours early, trapping him on the far side of the lake with nets still out. He didn't want them damaged, so he stayed longer than planned. The sky turned the color of bruises. Mist rolled in fast. By the time he tried to return, he could barely see 10 feet ahead. His boat lantern barely cut a circle of orange light in the fog. The lake was dead silent, no wind, no birds, not even the soft slap of waves. Just quiet, too quiet. Then Daniel heard it. Knock, a single tap against the bottom of his boat. He froze. Fish hit boats sometimes, but this sounded different, more deliberate. Then a second knock, knock. Then a third, knock, exactly 3. Just like the stories. A cold pulse of fear moved up his spine, pinprick sharp. He told himself it was debris, a branch, anything but that. But then something broke the surface near the bow, a pale hand. Small, thin, fingers curled like a child reaching up from underwater. Daniel gasped, stumbling backward. The hand slapped weakly against the boat again. He could see long, waterlogged strands of hair floating up. Someone was drowning. Ghost stories or not, Daniel wasn't the kind of man who let someone die. He scrambled to the edge, grabbed the wrist, and pulled. Hard, something rose from the water. A girl maybe 11 or 12, soaking wet, skin pale as chalk. Her eyes were closed, her lips blue. She wore a white cotton dress, heavy with lake water. He dragged her fully onto the deck. That was the moment he noticed the unforgettable detail. Water kept dripping from her hair, even though her hair was completely dry. Like the water wasn't on her, it was coming out of her. Daniel checked for a pulse. Nothing. He started CPR anyway, determined. As he pressed on her chest, a smell rose from her clothes. Not lake water, not algae, something older. A sour, earthy scent like mud from deep underground. After the third compression, the girl jerked violently and coughed up a thick stream of black water. It spilled across the boat floor, pooling around Daniel's boots. Her eyes snapped open. And they weren't the eyes of a child. They were clouded white, like someone who had been underwater a very long time. She looked at him, trembling, lips quivering. "Did you find my mum?" she whispered. Daniel froze mid-breath. He tried to speak, but the girl suddenly sat up straighter, her spine bending at an impossible angle, as if pulled by invisible strings. Her wet dress clung to her bony frame. "Where are they?" she asked, voice cracking. Daniel instinctively reached for his radio, but before he could react, the girl lunged and grabbed his wrist with shocking strength. Her skin was ice cold, almost burning. "No," she hissed. "You brought me up. You finish it." Daniel yanked his arm away and stumbled backward, knocking over his lantern. The boat plunged into darkness, just faint moonlight cutting through the fog. The girl slowly stood, unsteady. Her feet left wet footprints on the wood. Only the footprints weren't normal. They were too big, like adult footprints. A woman's. Daniel's heart pounded. He scrambled for the oars, desperate to get back to shore. But the lake around him had gone still, unnaturally still. No waves, no movement. The boat didn't even sway. The girl spoke again, barely above a whisper. "They never came back for me." Her head twitched. Once, twice. Then it snapped sideways with a crack. Daniel clamped his hand over his mouth. The girl slowly reached behind her neck and began pulling something out. A strand of long, dark lakeweed, then another, then a clump, dripping, tangled, and then a tiny white ribbon. A ribbon preserved by cold water for decades. Daniel realized what he'd pulled from the lake wasn't someone who had just drowned. It was Moira Laird, the missing girl from 1957. Every story, every warning, every detail he had ignored stood alive or not alive in front of him. Daniel lunged for the engine cord, pulling it so hard it burned his palm. The small motor sputtered once, twice, then roared to life. He didn't look back, didn't breathe, just gunned it through the fog, heading blindly toward the shore's faint silhouette. Behind him, something slapped the water. Then another slap, then 3 knocks on the hull. She was following him. He pushed the engine to its limit, but the fog thickened, swallowing the shoreline. He felt the boat tilt. Something heavy climbed onto the stern. A thin voice whispered in his ear, "You left me again." Daniel leapt overboard. The water was freezing, shocking him breathless. But he kicked hard, swimming toward where he hoped the shore was. The lake pulled at him like hands. He felt fingers brush his ankle, then a grip, then another. Tiny, cold hands. He pushed upward, lungs burning. The surface shimmered above. He reached for it and the hands let go. Daniel broke the surface, gasping. The fog had lifted slightly. He was maybe 20 meters from shore. He staggered onto land, collapsed, and crawled until he reached the trees. When he finally dared to look back, the boat was drifting empty. No sign of the girl, no movement, just silence. Daniel reported everything. The police searched the lake for days. They found no girl, no footprints, no evidence of anything he described. But on the 4th day, they found something caught in his fishing net. A small white ribbon, the kind a little girl might wear in her hair. Tested by historians, confirmed authentic style from the 1950s. Daniel left Kinlochard 2 weeks later. He never returned. He told his story once, publicly, then never again. He died in 2013 from a heart attack alone in his sleep. The last person to see him alive said Daniel was staring at the lake outside his window, and his shirt was wet, not rain, not sweat, lake water. They say Moira still appears at Loch Ard, and if you hear 3 knocks on your boat, she wants you to finish what she started. Which country should I cover next?